today is May 24th, 2021. I'm Lindsay Ralphs and I'm interviewing Dianne Barrett.
Thank you.
You're welcome. It's good to see you. Good to have you here.
Good to see you.
So, start out with demographics.
Okay.
Where you started off life in Chicago, I understand.
Yes, Chicago Heights. I was born in Chicago Heights,
Ooh.
which is a little south of the city of Chicago.
Uh-huh.
I actually grew up in Chicago itself, on the south side. So I went to school there. I have a sister who's younger than I am by 5 years. And from there, I was thinking last night, I think I went to school for 30 years straight after I started in kindergarten.
Oh my
It seemed
God.
like I never stopped going to school for a very long time.
How so?
I
It's
just
phenomenal.
wanted to keep learning things,
Uh-huh.
new opportunities. The big thing, as far as being a lesbian, I knew I was about 5, I was in the first grade, and I was in the reading chairs. I was small, and on the little chairs, and I remember looking up, and the nun, I went to Catholic school, was leaning over, and she had a magnificent cleavage. And I knew not to say anything about that. But I became a really good reader. I volunteered a lot, jumped up, ran to those reading chairs. I was becoming a favorite of the nuns.
I betcha.
Overall, I was frightened by the nuns in school because they were pretty angry people and were quite abusive with the children and violent. But I lived through it, obviously. And high school, I was very drawn to women in sports because that's where most of the jocks were. I was not a jock because I tried to be athletic, but I wasn't. I was a swimmer and that was about it.
Mm-hmm.
But I lined up with women who were in athletics heavily because I was attracted to them.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to be their best friend. I didn't know the word lesbian till I was probably out of nurses training. I went into nurses training right out of high school. The reason I went to nurses training was not to help people, but because when I was 4, I was taken by my father to visit my grandfather, who I really liked,
Mm-hmm.
and he was in a hospital, huge Chicago hospital, and children were not allowed in hospitals at that time. So my father stood me on the hood of the car and said, "There's your grandfather, wave."
Mm.
And I just saw these windows. And I thought, I have to be able to get inside hospitals
Oh, that's so interesting.
because I never want to be away from someone I love because I can't have access.
Huh.
So that's why I became a nurse.
Huh.
And I'm still friends with some of the women I was in training with.
Yeah.
I didn't come out in training. And after training, I sort of worked in the operating room at the hospital. I worked in the operating room because it was the least, I had the lowest grade there in my academics, and I thought I should dedicate some extra time to learning it. And I had 3 extra months of my curriculum, so I did that.
That's a statement of your personal drive in a weird way.
I think so.
And most people would say, boy, I was bad at that. I'm not going to do that again.
No. And then, I realized that I really liked it.
Uh-huh.
So I became the head nurse in heart surgery and kept moving up the ladder. I wasn't the most popular with my supervisors, but I got along well with the staff and we had a lot of friends. I became bored after that, even though I was working. I lived on the north side of Chicago.
Uh-huh.
And a friend of mine from high school, Pat, said, you need to get out of here. I ended up actually coming to this house
Oh, from there?
that we're in now, Crane, as
Huh.
a single woman. I stayed involved with women closely, physicians that I
Mhm.
met. I lived with a group of physicians here in Mount Washington. 5 of us lived in one house together.
Oh, really?
And we shared everything. I was very attracted to one of them. She got married, so that took care of that. However, I associated with women who I met at work. I worked at LA County Hospital. And we socialized. They were all lesbians, so that was good for me.
Mm-hmm.
Sue Wegeman is one of the people I
Oh, yeah.
met. She's in this interview
Yeah.
series. And we socialized well. I got to see people being couples,
Mm-hmm.
breaking up, getting back together. So it became this huge network of women. It was a good way for me to come out safely.
Yeah.
I like that. I
That's
didn't have to make a
important.
commitment to anybody,
Yeah,
but I
yeah.
could see what was going on.
Huh.
One Memorial Day weekend, this woman came and somebody said, "Don't go near her. She's really, you don't want to go near her." So of course I got involved with her.
Yeah.
And she became my first significant relationship.
Huh.
The main thing I remember about her is that I remember having sex and saying, "I'm going to throw away my birth control pills." It was such a relief just not to have to think about those damn pills and worry about having sex and not being
Yeah.
pregnant.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't going to have a child, I'll tell you that. So anyway, the other thing that I really liked is when I went back to work at the hospital in the emergency area of the operating room, I was an equal.
Mm-hmm.
Prior to that, I was a woman. I had to work with the anesthesiologists, who were primarily men.
Mm-hmm.
The surgeons were primarily men, and I was always sort of answering to their
Mm-hmm.
wishes to make them happy in
Mm-hmm.
the flow of the emergency room. This is LA County Hospital. We'd have about 30 people waiting for emergency surgery on the board.
Yeah.
After I came out and knew soundly that I was a lesbian, I was an equal. So all that
In
gaming,
your mind or in?
I just
in-
knew my behavior had changed.
Oh, okay. Got it.
I didn't have to listen to what they had to say in their whines and their whatever. We all worked together to take care of the patient. My voice was as important as theirs.
Huh.
And I think in my life prior to that, I never really felt that.
Yeah.
As a nurse, you're second.
Yeah. You're trained that way.
That's right. In my family, my father was the top dog.
Mm-hmm.
My mother was equal, but differently. But this was a relief. I remember standing by the emergency board, looking up, looking at these guys and saying, "Okay, this is how we're going to do it."
Yeah.
Because I was, the nursing staff were the constant.
Mm-hmm.
They were in and out. They were like visitors, so to speak. So that was a great relief and a great awareness. That relationship didn't last long because she wanted to experience having sex with men. And
You gave your birth control pills.
try these. Yeah. So I said, well, I can't do anything about that. And she just wanted out. So she used that as an excuse.
Yeah.
I became very depressed, suicidal. I didn't actively have a plan, but a friend of mine said, see my therapist. And so I did. I started therapy. My first interview was with Russell Anderson. He was at the Case Center for, and it was one of the first gay counseling centers in Los Angeles. I told him my story. He said, would you like to return for another appointment? And I thought, he's not locking me up. He's not recommending hospitalization.
Yeah.
So I had hope. And I continued to work with him as a client for many years. When I determined that I wanted to be a therapist, he became ill and he left me all his groups,
Oh my
which
gosh.
was a wonderful gift. So we had a very good relationship.
Yeah.
After that, I had other relationships, but I decided that since Karen, the first relationship, was going to be a psychotherapist, and she was lousy, I was looking for something else to do. So I thought, well, I could do that. People are going to pay her to see her. I could certainly. So I went back to school, but I always went to school.
Uh-huh.
I received a couple master's degrees in counseling and nursing, and I trained as a nurse practitioner in healing therapies. I became a hypnotherapist. So I liked school, but I wasn't a good student. I just did it because I was interested in learning the experience. Flower design is the last thing I tried to learn. I had no formal classes until lately. And I met a wonderful instructor who was very gifted and taught me a lot of things that I didn't know.
Yeah.
So that's my latest career, floral design. And now I'm doing this. I realized that I needed to have something to do with my time. It was COVID. I was bored. I was restless. We were rarely new to Los Angeles, even though we connected back and forth for years. It was different to be here full time. And I said, what do I like? And I thought I liked people's stories.
Yeah.
I'd been a therapist for 13 years. Then I stopped because of the earthquake in 1994. I moved up north with my partner, Marge, who was already in practice there. And I said, I don't want to sleep alone.
Mm-hmm.
Well, she's sleeping in Santa Maria and I'm sleeping here and we're having an earthquake. So I quit my practice 6 months later. 6 months, not even 6 months after we were there, we helped a person out who was pregnant and we ended up adopting a child.
Mm-hmm.
And she is still our daughter to this day, Floral.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, different, we hadn't planned on that, but
Yeah.
we just did it. I think that that sort of the way I've led my life. Just say, well, that's interesting, let's try it.
Yeah.
And that's what we're doing with this collection. Last night when I was thinking about this, I thought, this is really important.
Mm-hmm.
People have a lot to say. We're part of changing history
Yeah.
of not only the world, the United States, but for homosexuals, for lesbians.
Yeah.
And so I'm learning as I go. And I like that. I can't say, oh, I already know that.
Right.
I don't.
Right.
I'm learning.
Huh. So if you're to look at a theme, like listening through what you just said, if you're to look at a theme in your life, what do you think your theme is?
Go for it.
Go for it. Interesting. And when you die, is that what you want to be remembered as?
I think in part that's true.
Huh.
Have people around you who value you and want to help you.
Huh.
If you're always doing 100% or 90% or 80% of the giving, that's not the person that's going to help you.
Yeah. Yeah.
That particular person that sent me to therapy also helped me meet Marge. So he decided he would go see her at Kaiser because he was tired of me whining about my relationship that wasn't working. So we went to complain to her about his knee while he was there because we met each other while we were at the county hospital.
Right. I was gonna say,
She was a resident and I was the head nurse in orthopedic surgery. Yeah.
Huh. One of the things that I hear with you is you really listen to people giving you advice. You listen to what people have to say. And that informs you, sort of.
I sort of pick up things, like when I mentioned that Karen was studying to be a therapist, I thought, my God, if she can do that.
Right.
And at that time, I wasn't in therapy myself, but I was interested in it. It wasn't too popular. The 70s, everybody went to therapy, as you know.
Yes.
It was a good time to be a therapist, just like you. So I think that having people that really care about you, that you can trust, is like you.
Yeah.
You know, we care about each other.
Yeah.
I know that you're there for me, and likewise for you. So.
Do you feel like you find a stability with friends and people and environments, and from that stability you can go forth? So you're always creating like a step for yourself to make the next step.
It's a good way to describe it. I think that's true. I see relationships at levels, acquaintances, and some I care about more than others. But my true friendships are very limited. I think my trust is a big factor for me. So it takes time to test that.
Right.
But I'm interested in a lot of people. I find them interesting. But it is a level for me.
Right. Yeah.
My life is pretty exciting.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
full. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like it's been a rewarding life.
Yes,
you
ma'am.
know, that you've impacted people, which is part of a rewarding life, I think. And you've been impacted in turn.
And when people say at the end of the interviews, "Thank you for doing this," I think, wow. I mean, I'm amazed that they're thanking me.
Huh.
And yet I can see now as I'm into it, it does have meaning.
Mm-hmm.
It had meaning, but I didn't know the depth of it. I'm beginning to know that, which I like.
And what do you think that meaning is?
I don't know, just gratitude that someone's really willing to listen and be interested in you and your life.
Yeah.
And I am. I mean, these people are great.
Uh-huh.
You know, I'd love to know them better, but I know them in this way.
Yeah.
This is what it's meant to be. I like that.
Uh-huh.
I think too of all the, sometimes in the people I'm interviewing, I see the people that were like instructors that I wish would have been able to acknowledge me, because they could probably tell that I was attracted to them because I was listening to them intently, this kind of thing. But they couldn't, and I didn't realize that until these interviews, that in the 60s when I was going to school, people had to take an oath that they were not lesbians.
Oh, right.
So that kept them from really being open to somebody like myself, a young woman.
Yeah.
And I always thought it was me. I wasn't that interesting. But I can see that in some of the interviews I've done.
Yeah. You were basically a pretty out lesbian most of your life, weren't you?
Once I had that relationship, my first significant relationship, yes, I didn't have a problem with it.
Yeah.
I was proud of it,
Yeah.
and I still am. I like to be different. I like that about myself.
Did you feel any like prejudice or the things that keep people hidden? Or did you feel any of those things to make you think, I should probably pull back now?
I was surprised by experiencing prejudice at this time in history. In Santa Maria, I did experience that in the community when our daughter was going to school, and the parents, the mothers actually, became accusatory that we were offering a scholarship and asking us if we had a right to do that and what gave us. I was shocked by that.
Yeah.
Because I consider myself to be able to make pretty good assessments of people. But in reality, when I was there, I wasn't close to that many people. You know? I was really stunned by that. I think that still exists.
Yeah.
In the BE collection, we've determined not to interview anyone under 30 because I'm afraid we might some way historically jeopardize their career path. So even though some of the younger lesbians that I know would like to be interviewed and have expressed an interest, I know better. I'm trying to listen to that.
Yeah.
Because I'm older.
You know, that is sort of a dread thing to have to know.
It is, you're right.
Yeah. You know, we should feel that from this point, it's done. We just get to go on.
That's
and,
right.
You know, we'll keep working on coming out, but it's more and more common. But they have that mindset and that knowing that at any point, this may turn.
That's right.
And
fear.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't like that, but you're right. We exist with it.
Yeah.
And I am who I am. I'm not going to change that. And you know, if I was really put up against some accusatory situation, I would still affirm of who I am, and I'm a lesbian. I'm proud of it.
Yeah.
It was painful to come out, and once I came out, I was out.
How was your family with that?
Awful.
And I don't expand on that.
Right. I think that I did date boys a little bit in high school. I dated the boy next door. We were friends. He's probably gay now, I don't know. And so I went to dances, those things. I like to dress up. But when I was in training, they didn't have much contact with me, nurses training, because I was gone. However, my mother and I had a very difficult relationship historically. And I went to Chicago as an RN to hear Dr. Kubler-Ross talk about hospice. I was intrigued by it because I thought how wonderful that people could die with their dogs and their plants and friends around them instead of in some hospital. As a nurse's aide, I saw people would die like 6 people a night.
Yeah.
They say, oh, 26 is dead.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, people went to hospitals to die.
Mm-hmm.
And so anyway, I'd been at odds with my parents. I don't remember why. And I went to this thing, and I spent a week with them. I was in a relationship at the time, but I loved going to Chicago. I love Chicago still. And I just would travel back and forth from the meeting to my parents' home.
Mm-hmm.
I got to the airport. My parents drove me to the airport, to O'Hare, and my mother handed me this envelope. I thought it was a letter. So I checked my luggage, and I sat down to read the letter.
Mm-hmm.
And she... I thought she was going to say, what a great week we'd had.
Right, yeah.
No angst. No,
Yeah.
But she didn't. She said I was not leading the life that she and God had planned for me. And she was checking the list. She had intercepted, probably gone through my luggage and found notes from my lover at the time.
Oh my gosh.
I assume that's what she did. It was a very, very brutal letter.
Mm-hmm.
Brutal. And she was pretty brutal, historically anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And I was devastated. And of course I couldn't reach her. There was no cell phone, no.
Right, yeah.
So I called a friend of mine, Carol Duke, and I was cried, just, and she said, well, call her back. So I tried to, but they weren't home yet. They were still. And I eventually did. I said, what did you mean by that? You know what I meant. So that was the end of it. They were not happy about it. They didn't push heterosexuality or having a family on me. They knew better, probably. My grandmother, who's pictured up there in that really protected myself and my sister from my mother.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. She died almost the day I graduated from high school.
Oh.
And somebody said she lived long enough to get you through high school and out of the house.
Yeah.
I think that's true.
And she's your mother's mother.
Right.
So she kind of knew what person your mother was.
She would say, Lorraine, that was my mother's name, you never had to do that.
Huh.
Of course, I love that. Things like ironing, cleaning the dishes up. I said, see?
Well, that's why she had you do it, because she never wanted to do that. Right? She never did that.
But my father, I don't think ever wanted me to get married. He cried, when my sister got married, he cried the entire day. And people would say, they had a big wedding, and people would say, Ed, you're not losing a daughter, you're gaining a son. I never wanted a son. And I think that's true, he didn't.
Yeah.
So he was happy, he liked Marge. And he never pushed dating or any of that. And I spent a lot of time with him professionally, because I had to go down to the Loop where he worked as an attorney and get my braces adjusted.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'd travel over to his office and we'd chat. He'd take me to lunch with his partners. And so I became involved in how the law sort of worked.
Huh.
And he tried to teach me.
Uh-huh.
It was good. We traveled back to Roseland together on the train. And so we had a lot of time together that I liked. And my mother didn't have to be involved in that.
Yeah.
He and my mother had a great relationship. They should never have had children.
Huh.
They didn't have room for them.
Yeah. So how did it work out eventually with you being a lesbian with your mom and dad? Did she just give in, sort of? Or what happened? Doesn't sound like she came around exactly.
She didn't.
Yeah.
My mother was the only person who came around. My sister, on the other hand, when I told her I was a lesbian, said the perfect thing.
What is that?
Oh, I have no problems with that, she said. I'm happy that you told me. I had hoped that we would raise our children together. She had 2 children at the time. And I thought, whoa, I could have written a script for this. I wouldn't have done that. It was just, we were going to midnight mass. And it's just,
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I thought, whoa, okay. I said, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I really feel like my family is, you're my family.
Mm-hmm.
Marge is my family.
Yeah.
I'm close to Marge's sister, for
Mm-hmm.
example. And I appreciate that. So my friends have always been very important to me.
Right. That seems to be a common thing in our community, that often, our families are basically our friends.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we still may have these families, but, they're often not as supporting or caring or valuable as our friend family. So what else do you want people to know about you?
I like to look at my artistic ability, which is sort of new,
Mm-hmm.
relatively new. So
Like the flowers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
gardening and
Uh-huh.
just design of spaces.
Uh-huh.
But I really use that design ability in everything I do.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's working the emergency board, whether it's doing
Right.
this collection, whether it's,
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know where that came from, but probably my grandmother.
Mm-hmm. Probably.
Right.
That was your model.
Right. She raised prize-winning marigolds in the
See?
fair.
That actually is something.
Yeah.
Do you have any longing for anything left?
Time.
Yeah, longing for time.
Time and energy.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So do you want to share what your first word was? I always found that
Light.
fascinating about you. Yes,
Light.
light. And how did that come about?
I was driving with my mother. I was an infant or young, and she said it was Christmas, around the time of my birthday, I guess. She shut me up, tried to shut me up by saying, "Look at all the lights."
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't speaking yet, and we were driving past Christmas lights, so light was it. I started saying light.
Mm-hmm. That's sort of, in my knowing of you, you have been an interesting carrier of light. That there's also sort of a beaconing quality about you. I mean, I think this program that you're doing is a way of lighting up people's truths.
I see that when they say, "Thank you for doing this,"
Yeah.
and it's like, wow, it's their light coming through.
Yeah, but you kind of created the space for it. I want to say thank you to you and Marge for doing this project. I think it is amazing and astounding and really fun.